Good morning, everybody. We are already chatting. I didn't realize that the chat was open to everybody. I thought it was just like I could post something in it before it gets started and it would be available when it started. Apparently, I've never been on anybody else's live stream before it started. So it was throwing me off there when Ian started posting stuff like half an hour before we started this morning. But cool. That's interesting. That means I can chat with you before I'm actually ready to go. So maybe I'll take advantage of that in the future. Good to see you all here this morning on a Saturday morning for me, obviously, not for many other people, but good to see you guys here. Sorry about Thursday. We had some things come up at work that I just needed to get taken care of and couldn't take the time out of my day. Unfortunately, that's the reality of still being a full-time employee. So I'm planning on continuing to be a full-time employee for many years to come, unless something else crazy happens. But we'll see. We'll see how where life takes us. But yeah, definitely interesting. Definitely missed being with you guys on Thursday, and hopefully we'll be able to do that a little bit more consistently in the future. I do have it marked off in my calendar for work, so work people typically are not going to bug me during that time, but unfortunately sometimes things come up that just need to be handled faster than taking an hour break. So sorry for those that might have been looking for that, but I will do my best to be on for next Tuesday and next Thursday. You like that? Thanks, Ming. Yeah, this I have. So this is obviously not a sponsor, but my I've bought quite a few shirts from a website called, I think it's $6shirts.com or something like that. And basically it's cheap t-shirts with funny sayings, stuff like that. Most of the t-shirts that you see me wear either were gifts from family or friends, or they're these cheap $6 shirts that I got someplace. So I thought this was fitting. Yeah, I am a sports fan, but I'm not a lot of sports fan. I pretty much follow football, American football. Um, I just recently got into F1 racing, and that's about it. And the only reason I got into F1 racing because I made the mistake of watching the documentary on YouTube, not YouTube, on Netflix. So there's that. But anyway, good to see you all in here. Let's see, we got Ian. Welcome, Ian. Ray. Good to see you, Ray. Ming and Justin. Good to see all of y'all here. It's awesome to jump in online and have multiple people already already watching and already participating. If you are watching, if you wouldn't mind giving me a like, that would be helpful. And if you are not subscribed, subscribe. I assume all of you are, though, because you jumped in right away. So so that's cool. If you are watching live and you're not in the chat, jump in the chat because I love to interact with you guys. Honestly, that's the main point of doing the live streams is interacting with you guys. So jump in the jump in the chat and say hello. Join the conversation. Ask me questions. If you do ask me a question, specifically wanting me to answer, type at DevMentorDave. That'll just put a little box around it and it'll make it easier for me to find your question. I do try to follow along with the chat between my monologues, but sometimes it gets a little bit busy here. So feel free to notify me with that at DevMentorDave just so I can see it, make sure I answer your questions as we go. So this morning we will look at the Deep Pockets project. There's going to be a few. We might take a little bit longer than I normally would because I want to go over some things with it based on what I saw real quickly a few minutes ago on a PR. And then I had something I wanted to maybe talk about, but we'll just kind of see where things go this morning. And obviously, your guys' questions take precedence to me. So I've never heard of Snorg's teas. Less expensive version of Snorgs teas. See, now I gotta look it up. See, this is the problem with live streaming. Now I've got a Snorgs teas. Yeah, it's very similar in design style. Man, they seem much more wordy though. Uh, yeah, but some of them are the same, like that Mordor Fun Run. I do. That is interesting that they would have the same designs. I wonder. I wonder how that works from like an IP standpoint. That's interesting. So, I'll have to look at that. But that's definitely much more expensive. Snorg tees. But I wonder if they have better because like this is pretty cheap material. Although the I think it's the Heather ones, if I remember correctly, they have much better feel. This is a little bit more cheap. But I just saw this sitting. I must have worn it at some point. It was sitting in my pile from my wife folding my laundry, and I was like, yeah, I'll wear that today. So thank you. I think it was Ming. Thank you for the comment on the shirt. Let's see. Justin has a question. Can you do an example on how to help the Deep Pockets GitHub? I don't know how to code or use GitHub. Well, first maybe start learning how to code. Uh, but I can show you. I can show you how to set up your GitHub pretty quickly. Um, I may not go into all the details. I think I actually did a video early on about connecting to GitHub. So let me see. Hang on. Let me pull up the channel and let's see. Live streams. Deep Pockets Frontend Code. First PR review. Requirements and design. Feature selection. Huh. I know we talked about it. Tickets. Let's see. I'll let you guys take a peek at what I'm doing. Here we go. Okay. I want to say PR review. So we obviously did a PR review. Let's talk code. Maybe this one. I think it might be on Let's Talk Code. Let's go away. Let's see if there's anything. I'm sure this is really interesting for you guys. But I want to answer the question if I can. I don't see it. We'll take a look at it. Okay, so let's jump in since we're already over here. Let's jump into pull requests. Yes, go away. Yes, go away. Go away. Funny t-shirts. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at some PRs here. We're going to start off with this one, number 24. Ray says, I have a 2 terabyte external crash. All my development projects. Oh my goodness. Oh, that stinks. Yeah, you definitely want to remember your GitHub password, and B, always push whatever project you're working on. Put it on GitHub or put it on Bitbucket or something like that. That way you always have it. So I have even really old projects on my Bitbucket account, just in case, because I've also lost databases, and plus, it's always nice to sometimes clean off your database or clean off your database to clean off your computer, just so you don't have a bunch of crud in it, and so that way you just always have that stuff available to you. So, hey, what's wrong with Bitbucket? Come on. I'm already set up. I don't even know what to look at. issues, pull requests. Okay, yeah, we'll walk through that. So, it's just another Git repository, basically, Justin. Yeah, GitHub all the way. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just because I've used Bitbucket for many, many years. I just don't. GitHub doesn't do it for me. I need to get used to using it more. I never really used GitHub. Git GitHub was not as big of a thing when I first started, and so I just don't. I didn't grow up as a developer using GitHub, and so I don't have like this massive list of GitHub things. But I did have Bitbucket. I've got some stuff in Bitbucket that I've worked on before. But anyway, all right, let's jump in here, take a look. Edit button has now been placed in its own cell. So we had an issue basically with this one. We wanted to make sure that the edit button was in its own cell. So when you're looking at the table, it was inside the same cell as a description, if I remember. So we just want to check and make sure everything else looked good and worked good. So we're not going to look at that necessarily today. We're just going to make sure that the file looks the way that I think it should. Budget list. And we want to come down here. So we've got our 4 cells instead of 3. So year, month, budget name, and action. And just in case you're wondering, that should match the design here. That's what we're looking for. And again, we don't have a name up here, but I mentioned last week that using the word action or something like that would be fine. So that's what we have here. So we've got action as the table cell header. And then we've got our own table cell here, which is perfectly fine. Flex end is good. Button variant outlined. All right, so that all looks the same. Just for kicks, let's pull it down and make sure it all looks right. Oops. Someday I'm going to learn to type while people are watching. Make sure I have the updates. All right, let's come back over here. We should have hot reloaded. We did, and we've got those changes here, so that looks good. All right, that is perfect. You may be wondering, we've got a lot of white space here. There may be things that we'll want to add in the future. So as far as columns, like we may want to, on here, we might want to eventually add something like a percentage used or warnings about specific categories that are over budget, things like that. So it's okay that we have this space here because we might use this for other things in the future. So that's fine. I know it looks a little wonky now, but I have some ideas. As the client, I have not shared with you all of my ideas because that's what really happens. So I've got some ideas for things like that we may get to over time as we build this out. So, okay. So that looks good. We're going to go ahead and approve this. And I forget. I know there's a way. Do I have to go into review? Do I have to go over here? I thought there was a way to review elsewhere. All right, approve, submit approval. Now we can merge it in, confirm the merge. So many steps. It's generally probably a good thing, but lots of steps. Okay, let's go back over here and pull main again. Update it. So we've got the new. Let's come back over here on main. Make sure we've got everything. We do. That's good. Just for fun, refresh. All right, we're good to go. Okay, so that PR is in from last week. The slight change that we requested. Good job, Neil. I don't know if I don't think Neil's on today. But good job, Neil, either way. Okay. Let's look at this next one. So this one is added budget resource API using the budget controller. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here. This is not necessarily, again, saying that Kelly is a horrible developer or anything like that. I just want to kind of go over a few things to help us as we move forward in our PR, in our pull requests and our tickets, just to make sure that we're doing things well. Again, the goal of this is to help you all learn to work within a team environment, learn to work when you've got a lead that's going to be doing PR reviews, things like that. Again, feel free to do your own PR reviews of other people on here and share your own feedback and suggestions. This one's going to have a good bit of feedback, and probably a little bit of training in how I want you to do things. Again, unfortunately, every company kind of does things slightly different, so you'll definitely want to learn how your company does things, and you're gonna run into this stuff. Even as a senior developer, you're going to run into situations where your company does things differently than you have in the past. So um, get used to it. So, Kelly, if you're watching this live or later, this is not against you. This is a learning opportunity for everybody. So here we go. Okay. First, let's take a look at the code. Files change 2. So the first thing that I see here is a packaged lock.json file. Um, generally, we don't push packaged lock.json files unless we're really specific about making sure that production has a specific lock file. In that case, we would typically only have certain people update the lock file. So you would usually only update the lock file when you are adding or removing specific npm packages. So typically, I would say if you are updating the package lock file, don't commit that unless you have permission from a lead. Because that means that you've done something. We can, like, if you look in here, basically what you're saying is updates based off of the local environment, not necessarily package updates. So since this is all based off of local environment, we definitely don't want to push that up to our production environment. Now, right now, we don't have any place where this lives in production. This is really not going to be something that has a production environment. This is something that's just for developers to use. So it's not intended to be public, but just in most cases, you should not be uploading a package-lock file. And because part of that is because everybody's developing on different systems and things like that. Usually you only want that to be updated either in a build process, so something like a continuous integration, continuous development pipeline or something like that, where it's building it specifically based on the parameters of production. Or you have somebody that's on your team that is kind of their role. The only other reason you should be uploading package lock files would be if you're updating npm packages. So generally, I would say let's remove this. So I will leave a note here. And then what we can do is we can actually go to our file here, our gitignore file, and we can add in the package dash lock.json. So we can do package, if I can spell it correctly, package dash lock.json. All right, so we can add that to the gitignore so that it doesn't pick up those changes moving forward. Typically, what I will do is I'll just have the production environment or the build process do that because it's going to do an npm install anyway. So that way it will update the lock package in that instance for that specific environment. So let's go ahead and Adding lock file to ignore. Let's push that up. Don't ever do this. I'm pushing straight to mange. Let's see. Oh, it won't let me. Good. I must have done something right when I set this thing up. Bypassed rule violations. Oh, no, I did bypass it. I have the power to bypass it. Don't do this. Don't push anything to main directly. I don't think you can, but just in case, this is only for me. All right. Just to make sure we've got everything pulled down. Okay, so that is no longer there. Now let's go back to our review. All right, so typically don't push the package lock JSON file. That's rule number 1. Okay, so then we have the routes API. So again, we're building a budget resource API. And what we have here is the inclusion of a budget controller and the this route resource budget. Let me make this a little bit bigger just so you guys can see, hopefully a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so route resource budgets budget controller class. Okay, so this is not necessarily a bad approach. My biggest issue with this is more that it really doesn't follow what the ticket requested, than that this is necessarily wrong. So if you go and you look at the Laravel documentation, you're going to see there's lots of different ways to build routes. There's lots of ways to group routes, and things like that. So some of it is kind of based on what you prefer. And again, we're kind of in the situation where I'm both the client and the lead developer on this, so we're going to go with what I prefer. And more importantly, it's the issue is that we actually had something laid out in the ticket that specified how we want to do this. So when you're going through and working on your tickets, make sure that you're looking to see if there's anything specific in that ticket that should be guiding you along as to how I want things to be done. So let's take a look at the ticket here. This is the ticket, it's in progress, that we are looking at. So it says this is a backend ticket only. That's funky. Why did I write that like that? Who knows? Okay. Please create, if not already created, a basic API controller. Okay. Step number 1. Please create a basic API controller. So let's go back and look at this. We don't have a new controller, but we're pulling in this controller here. So let's do this. Let's pull down this branch. All right, so that way we've got everything here. So what we've got is we've got this API. So we're in routes API. We've got this new resource that was added. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Hopefully that's easier to see. So we've got this route that's been created in the API, and we are pulling in this budget controller. So I'm just going to click on that and see what it is we're pulling in here. Now, if you'll notice, the location of this controller is just in the main controller directory. If you go back to our API route here, you'll notice that at some point, I think we were doing some testing and things. I must have committed this. Yeah, it was me. So I committed this at some point, didn't remove it after we were doing a demo. So if you'll notice, there's a difference in the in where these are located, right? So we have controllers API, budget category API controller. So there's a difference in the naming convention, right? And there's a difference in the name spacing. So what I would prefer is this really is more of a view controller. So the idea is that any routes that are in the web, let's go back to our route folder. So any routes in the web directory, the web route file, these would be loading views, and the views load the React components, right? So I want to keep the view controllers separate from our API controllers just to keep things clean. API controllers oftentimes will have more code than view controllers, depending on how it is you're doing your project and what you're doing. They're just going to have more functionality, more code. So it's nice to not have all that stuff jumbled, and you can just know if it's a web route, it's going to be in just the controllers. If it's an API route, it's going to be in the controllers API directory, right? So again, we don't have that. That's interesting that we're not getting any errors. I guess since we're not using it, that's odd. I'm going to delete this since we don't actually have that file anywhere. But okay, so really what we're looking for, if we look at the ticket again, we want to create a basic API controller. So we want something that's in the APIs. It's for the budget, right? So probably the easiest way to do that is to use the artisan command. So we could do something like, again, I'm in Sail, so it's not going to always be Sail, but it might just be PHP if you're on your local. So Sail artisan, make controller, and I think it's -R. Let's double check. So you can create a controller. Are we in controllers? That is a resource controller. Make controller. Guess we have to name it. That might be a good idea. We want this to be budget API controller. And then I think it's -R. Let's look. Somewhere in the documentation here. Hang on a second. I know. There's a way. Are we in the right for? Oh, why are we in 5.0? Who did that? That's horrible. Okay. Let's try this again. Always make sure you're in the right version of the documentation. Okay, let's see. Maybe just search for -R. There we go. Dash resource. Okay. So dash resource, I believe, should automatically give us this stuff. Let's just try it and see. I thought there was like a... Let's see. That's weird. I thought for sure there was a list of them. Oh, I think that's in... Never mind. Sorry. That's in a different... That's in setting up models. Okay, so was it dash resource? Huh. Okay. Dash resource. Let's try it, see what happens. All right, so we made... Oh, stink. That's annoying. I didn't add the API route. All right, so it built it inside the controllers. We're just going to move that inside the API. There we go. Okay. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so we've got budget. Here's our routes. Typically, we would add our model. So use app models. I think it's just budget. All right, so here we have our budget. So we have index, create, store, show, edit, update, destroy. All these methods are automatically created. So this is important because we want to be able to test our API endpoints. All right, so right now, let me just kind of talk about what this is doing here. So this route resource it's giving us a quick way to basically create lots of endpoints, right? So if we go back to the documentation, and we go, uh, let's see, resource. Okay. So if you look at the resource, what it actually does is it kind of gives you a quick way of writing all of these routes. Instead of writing each of them individually in your route file, you can create a resource route, and it automatically assumes that you have um, these different methods in your controller. All right. So when you write a route like this, it's going to assume that these are all available. Now, we just made a resource controller that has those. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many is in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So when we made a resource specific controller, it actually made all the different methods that the resource route is expecting. All right. Now, this is again pointing to our view. So one problem with the code that as it currently stands in this PR is it's pointing to a controller that doesn't have the methods created for the API. Another problem is it's pointing to a controller that is not going to return JSON. It's not going to return what we're expecting to get back from an API. It's returning a view. And so that's another problem with this. So that's why the ticket specifically calls out creating a basic API controller. So as you're working on your tickets, make sure that you're looking at the instructions, because I try, I'm not perfect, but I try to kind of give you each of the pieces that you're going to need to do as much as I can, especially for those of you who are pretty new to Laravel and even just new to development in general. So make sure you're following along with the instructions. All right. So the next thing, so here's the, I did put some documentation in here, just FYI. Oh, it actually goes to the same place. What do you know? It's almost like I had planned this. Okay. So we've got some information about those resource controllers. This is what it should look like. And then we've got, please create a set of CRUD API routes using the controller grouping method. Okay, so this is another issue with this specific PR. We have it in the API resources, which is great. That's perfect. And there's some other things that I'm going to talk about that are not specified in the ticket, so that's my fault on that. So, but just so you guys know moving forward how we want to do things. But I did specify in the ticket that I wanted to use the controller grouping method. All right, so this is using the resource grouping method, which again is not wrong. It's just not what I was wanting us to do. All right, so let's take a look at the controller grouping method. Let's come up here. Route groups. There should be. Okay. What? Why is that not? Are we in 5.0 again? Talk on it. There we go. Okay. As you can see, controller grouping was not in 5.0. Okay, so this is more what I would be expecting right here. So we're pulling in our controller, and then we're doing a route controller. Now, we're passing in the controller class, right, that we included. Something that we wouldn't necessarily have to do is this grouping method. Now, I typically do, especially because a lot of times what happens is you end up getting a hierarchy of routes that go beyond just the predefined methods, right? So you can see there's a hierarchy of routes here, right? There's get photos / create. There's get photos and then a specific photo ID. Get photos edit. Again, I'm yeah, this would be for getting information. I don't know that I would always use create and edit. Um, but these, just FYI, from an API standpoint, those are more view. And this could just be my philosophy difference between even Laravel, and that's fine. Um, but definitely some of these other ones, put, patch, delete, things like that. So if all we did was just this part, it should give us all of the methods that are defined within that. So if we go back, let's take a look at um, routing. Let me see. Where is it at? All right. That's where we were. Where's the resource routing? Resource. What? Let's see. This is the only problem. Partial reason naming resources, resource controllers, resource routes. All right. Let's see. That gives us all that. I feel like the controller method gives you the same things. I don't know. I'll look it up later. I think the controller method gives you the same routes. It's just missing a few of them. I'll have to look it up. You can look it up yourselves. But anyway, I prefer the controller method because it allows me to specify those routes and individually, and I generally prefer that because then I can do things however I want. Because sometimes you'll make a route that is not a standard API route. It's not a standard Laravel route. So maybe you want something that's a little different from where was it? Oh, I don't know. We won't look at it. Maybe you want something that's different from the normal list. Oh, I have it here. Hang on. Boop. So maybe you want to add something in here that pulls, for our case, let's say photos. You want all the posts that a photo is connected to for some reason. Let's say that's a case, right? So, but you want to do it based off of the photos and not based off the posts, right? So you might be adding extra routes to this, and that's where. But you're going to make the calls from the photo controller in this instance, right? So there's going to be times where your API controller is going to have other methods, and you want to be able to add those methods into your route structure. So I typically, and sometimes there may be options where you have a route controller that only does one thing. Maybe it's only get, and you don't actually have. There is no opportunity for people to update or add or delete items. It's just getting stuff from the database. So your API route would only be the get routes. I like to do it by controller because that's typically how we put most of our code into the system, is through the controllers. And so I like to group the routes based on the controllers. So let's take a look at this again. So really, here's what I would have been expecting. We'll start with this part. So we'll do route controller. And then this would be, so we need to actually pull in our use. Actually, we'll just do this. We'll do API / budget API controller. And we'll do this. Something like that. All right. So this would have been, to me, step one of getting the budget API controller in here. Now, especially with this setup, yeah, the controller's where the business logic is. Exactly. So with this setup, again, we're pulling the wrong information back, right? So let's just do this. Let's do I need the route name too. Sorry. Hang on. Let's just leave this like this. And let's say that we want to run the get command or the get route, right? So we're just going to do API budget. So let's come over here to our thing and say localhost API budgets. So this should be, if you look at our documentation here, this should be just getting the index method from the controller that we have connected to this route, right? So let's run that. All right, budget controller does not exist. Oh, that's because hang on. Hang on, we'll just do this. Import class. There we go. Save. Let's try it again. All right, so we did a localhost API budgets. And instead of getting an API response, what do we get? We got a view, right? And that makes perfect sense because that's the actual index of the budget controller that we have connected. So the index is returning a view. Let's see, show would be, I don't remember off the top of my head. It's just slash ID. All right, so let's do /ID budget /1. That's going to show nothing because we just returned null. Let's do hello, and it's going to return hello. All right. So this is again why we want to make sure that our API routes are using API methods. They're hitting a controller that's returning API data and not just their view. So Laravel is going to return. We prefer to use views in Laravel because not all of your application is going to be a React component. There's going to be some static headers, footers, things like that you're going to want in your application Ming, and that way Laravel is set up to use blade files or views, and then you include the React components into those views. That's why it's more just a functionality of the built-in routing process of Laravel, so that it all just works well, basically, if that makes sense. So that's another problem with this specific PR is because it's pointing to the wrong budget controller, it's going to return the wrong thing. What we're looking to do is receive JSON back. And again, part of this is my fault for not being more specific in what we want to set up and what we want to see and how we want to test it. So, I'll take some of that on myself, but it's a good learning opportunity for everybody to kind of see what I do mean when I'm talking about a CRUD API and things like that. So what I would like to do, and I'm trying to see if I have budget details page component. Yeah. So this ticket actually really could have been 2 tickets. One of them as the actual API controller, and then one as the API routing. Honestly, though, I think the route's pretty straightforward, so I think that's pretty simple. But I think what I would want to see is the actual ability to do CRUD, right? So what I'm really looking for in this ticket is to go further. So we don't want the budget controller here. We'll just get rid of that. What we want is the budget API controller, and we want these methods, at least some of them. This, again, so show the form for editing. So I would not put this in an API resource personally. And then the other one is this one. I would not put this in an API resource. So there's a couple things here philosophically that I would disagree with Laravel's general process, or at least their boilerplate. But the rest of these I would put into the controller, right? So let's just do this. Let's go budget all, and we'll just return budget all. So now if I hit the index, let's go back to our API, and we're going to comment this out and bring this one back. So now if I hit this route. Oh, I need to do. Yeah, let's do budgets. I think that's correct. We'll find out. So now if I hit this route, 404. What did I do wrong? Budget API controller. Maybe it doesn't automatically do it. Well, let's do this. Oh my goodness, I cannot type at all. All right. Let's do route get / and then we'll use index. I've never been big namer, but you can do route naming. Okay, especially on API routes. Let's try this again. Nada. Why is that not working? Did I do something wrong? Somebody tell me what I did wrong. I want routing controller. Oh, I had it right the first time. All right. Let's try that now. Oh, we got an error. Okay. Budget API controller, extends controller. Cannot declare class because the name is already in use. What? The name is already in use. Class budget API controller. Budget controller. Budget API controller. Naming convention, or I mean the name spacing. Maybe that's it. Oh, that's one problem. Oh. Let's see, use. Okay. App models budget not found. Seriously? Do we not have a budget model? We don't have a budget. How do we not have a budget model? Has nobody created a budget model? Something is not right here. Let's see what is going on. Where are all of our models? We've got migrations. Huh. We have not set up a budget model. Wow, there's lots of problems here. And this is my fault. That's crazy. Let's see. We got a question. Laravel is more of an SSR approach. Then we use React as our pages for the client-side features. Yeah, sort of. So Laravel, in our case, it will return some HTML, so it is rendering a few things. But in using React, then we have React do the rendering for the front end for those specific components. So Laravel, the way we're using Laravel is as a framework to handle all the routing and all the backend business logic. So it's kind of a pseudo SSR. We're not sending everything back from a server-side rendering, but we are doing kind of the basic layout as server-side rendering, and then we have React components for all the different pieces that we're going to build out there. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, it is kind of it's a little bit of a weird amalgamation of two different things. Um, the goal was to keep it all in one code base rather than having like a Next.js front end and having it kind of its own server. Basically, you run it all off of one server this way, so you don't have to have multiple servers running. Um, it just keeps things a little bit cleaner from a code management standpoint, in my opinion. Um, but you know, there's pros and cons to both sides of that debate. Okay, let's see if we can figure out what in the world is. Oh, we don't have a budget model, so let's come back over here. So let's do sale, artisan, make model. I don't know why we don't have a budget model. So we should have a budget model now. We do. Has factory. Let's see if that's enough to make us happy. All right. So this is returning nothing, which is expected because we don't have any budgets in our system. All right. So that makes perfect sense. Now, here's what I would like to see in this ticket. I would like to see some very basic methods here. So a basic return, basic create, store. So this would be for updating or storing. I'm sorry, store, update, destroy. So create we wouldn't normally use. So storing would be for creating, updating, and then destroying. So as you see, when you create a resource controller, there's some things that I don't want in our resource controllers. I just want the API. I don't want anything that has to do with views. So no forms, we don't want to send, I don't want to send server-side rendered content back in the API. All right, I only want JSON data in the API. So right now we have no budget. So let's just for fun go into our database, wherever I put that, and let's add some budget. So we'll do test 1, 2024, January. All right. And test, oops, not the ID. Test 2, 2024, February. All right, save. Do what? Oh, we have month is an integer. Why is month an integer? I don't know. Let's do this. 1, 2. Let's see what happens then. Okay. So now when we hit this, all right, now we've got data coming back. So we know that our API actually works. And what I would really like to do is set something up so that we can create and update and delete. So let's just look at this real fast since we're here. And you guys can see how bad of a developer I am. All right, so just for testing, we're going to create a new one. So we're going to do, we're not going to do a bunch of checks that we should do. We'll just do budget. Oop, not budget. Budget. Create. And shoot, I don't remember. Hang on, let me see what. I don't remember what the request is. I think it's request dash data. This is what happens when you don't code all the time, full time anymore. All right, let's take a look at this. So there are lots of tools that you can use to do this, but I typically use something called Postman. Postman lets you test API endpoints. So here I'm going to test, let's see if this increases. There we go. Here I'm going to test our local API budget. It's a GET request. I'm going to send it. And now I'm getting the information back that I am expecting. All right, so here's the information. I can make it prettier. Let's close this. I can make this prettier here so it looks nicer and we can send the information. All right. And then something else I can do is I can make this a post request. Let's see. Let's do post. Budgets, and let's do body. And body, we're just going to do, we could do raw or form data. No, we'll do raw. So we're going to send JSON. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy this and send this here. Pull this down a little bit so you can see. All right, so I'm going to do test 3 and we'll put it in month 3. Okay, so I'm going to come back here because I do want to see just what that request looks like because I forget. So I'm going to dime dump the request. Come back over here and run this post request. So we're hitting the post. Now I need to make sure that we have that endpoint in here. So we're going to route post. And here I'm going to do budgets / budgets. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then we'll do store is our method. If I remember correctly, yep, store is our method. So we should get a dime dump back of the request here. And there we go. Okay. So we do a preview. Here's our dime dump of the request. So here's the parameters that came in here. Request parameters. And I don't remember. I thought it was data. Let's just dime dump that here real fast. Request dash data. Null. So it's not data. Let's just find out. Request input name. Maybe it's just request. Let's do it this way. This is how I typically see it done. We're going to grab each of them individually. We're going to do name. What do we got here? Name, year, month. We don't want to send the ID. Name, year, month. Okay, so we got name. We'll do request. Get name. Year. Request. Get year. Month. Request. Get month. All right, and we'll just return this and get rid of this and see what breaks. All right, so now we're sending this send call to undefined function get. I thought for sure get was on there. See, this is what happens. Request input name. Ah, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Boom. All right. So this is what I'd rather do. Get them all here. So we'll do input, and then here we'll do input. So this is getting all the items. I knew there was a way to do that. Okay. And let's try it again. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So we have to add a fillable. This is protected, I think. month. I think it's protected fillable. Let's check the documentation. Not billable. Did I miss it? Billable attribute. Yeah, where is it? Show me how to do it. Come on. So this is a protected fillable name. Okay, good. Let's try it again. Column could not be found. Okay. So our budget table does not have something that we would usually use, which is created by, updated by columns. So there is a way to do this without that. So let's do, trying to remember off the top of my head. Let's just go to Google. Oh, hey. Create Laravel model without timestamps. Timestamps, public timestamps equals false. There you go. Let's do this. Now let's see if it does it the way we want it to. Yay! It works. Welcome to development, everybody. If you forget all the things that you need to do, thankfully Google is still there. All right, let's, so this is returning what we just inputted. So let's just double check our database and see. Refresh, bada bing. So we've got that coming in. So now we know that our create method is working. Let's go and take a look at our update method. So this, so one thing that I prefer to use, especially in updates, is route model binding. So instead of doing the request and a string ID, what I prefer to do is have it automatically bind by the ID being sent in the URL parameter, right? So what I would do is I would do budget, budget. So I'm basically telling it, hey, what's getting passed in should be a budget, which all it's going to know about is an ID, and so I need to make sure that it's going to it will automatically then try to find that budget based on the ID that we pass into the route. All right, so just for example, let's dime dump the budget here. All right, and then let's go update our route. So we need a put route budgets budget is going to be our ID, and then we'll do update. That's the method that we're going to call. So we're going to call a put on budgets and then the budget ID. Could you use a post for this? Sure. I think put is the right thing to do anyway, but we'll find out. Okay, so what I want to do over here to test this is I'm going to change this to a put, and I'm going to change the name of test3, but I'm going to add the ID, which we know is 3, I believe. We'll double check that here. ID is 3. Very good. Okay. So we'll add the ID to this. Why is this? Oh, it's not a string. Oh, hang on. That makes more sense. Okay, so we're going to put this to budgets. Actually, sorry, we want this, not this. This is the updates that we're doing. So our budget 3 is the one we're trying to update, and we're going to change this to test again. All right, so we're sending new, and we should just get a dime dump because we should be going, because of the put, we should be going to the update. So send, and we have the dime dump here. Here's our information. Notice the attributes already add number 3 in here because this is the information that's already in the database. Remember, we dime dumped the bound item, right? So we've got in our budget controller under update, we're expecting not an ID, we're expecting an actual resource, an actual model, right? So we're expecting to get the budget that we put in the API route up here. So like if we did, let's say we did 1 and change this, now we should get ID 1, test 1, 24, 1, etc. Right? So Laravel automatically allows us, by using that route model binding, to get the information that we want to interact with very quickly without having to do a query for ourselves. So that's just nice. So what we can do here is something very simple. We can do, oh, we need to do the request. So, because we want to make sure that we have not just the budget, but we also have request, right? So let's time dump that and make sure everything's coming through. All right, so here's our budget model, and that's 1 still because we're still using 1. Let's change it to 3. All right, so that's 3. And then after that, we have the values that we're passing in our request. All right. So what we can do is we can come in here and do, again, I would typically, you'd want to do like some cleaning on this, things like that. But we'll just do it this way. Updates equals request all, and then budget, update, updates. And we can, I think we can return this. And it should just return that it was updated. I don't think it's going to return the actual value, if I remember correctly. Let's find out. So all we did was we got the request data, which we're making sure that comes in second. We're binding the URL parameter to a budget instance or a model, and then we're updating that specific model with the values that we're passing in. All right, so let's try it and see what happens. Yep, and so we got a successful return instead of the actual budget. So if we wanted to, we could do something like, I think you have, you might have to refresh it. I'm not 100% sure. So let's try that. Let's see. Yep, and so now we get the value back if we do that. All right, so again, let's just do send, and we get the value back that we updated. And we can go to our database and see that we are updating it. So test 1 more, we're updating the values there. All right, so Postman just gives us an easy way to make these updates. And then of course we could come in here and we could do a delete, right? So we want to destroy. Again, I would just bind it personally. Budget, and then I would do budget, destroy. Return. I think you just return that because you're not going to return anything of substance other than the fact that it was complete. Sometimes from this you might return actual JSON with a success message or something like that, right? We're doing very simple things here just to understand kind of how this all works. And kind of what the expectations are if you do a CRUD ticket. All right, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Again, this doesn't all have to be perfect and have everything that we would ever want in it. What I would like in a CRUD ticket is the ability to test all of the main endpoints of CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete. Those are the things that we want to be able to test from Postman in order to know that it's actually working. It's one thing to write API routes in here. It's another thing for them to actually call the correct methods in a controller and actually work, right? So that's what I would prefer. Budgets. I can't talk and type at the same time. Budget. There we go. Bada bing. Okay. So we've got all of our main routes here. They're grouped based on the API controller. And let's say we wanted to eventually have API routes that interact with budget categories, right? And we wanted to, let's say we had a method in our controller for linking or line items, right? So we wanted to remove a line item from a budget, and we wanted to do that through the budgets. Well, we might do something like route delete budgets budget line item something like that, right? And then our method might be something like remove or delete, or delete line item, right? So in that case, you'd still want the ability to add some of these extra routes, but you're going to call methods that are inside this controller that are outside of that normal controller. Let's say we wanted to add outside of that normal route tree. So there are going to be instances where you do that, where you want things under specific routes, and there's connections there. Maybe you're associating or disassociating resource or relationships from like the main controller instead of the individual models controller. So that's why, again, I prefer the controller routing method. It just lets you put in the routes that you want to use there, and it lets you kind of organize that a little bit better, in my opinion. So, so let's save this delete one. Let's see if it actually works. We will try it here. All right, let's try this. So we don't need this data. Let's just create a new one. Let's get rid of number 1. Delete. And that should be all we need to do. Too few arguments. Model destroy 0 past. Maybe it's delete. There we go. It was delete, not destroy. Okay, so we got a successful response. Let's look at our database and make sure it's actually gone. It is actually gone. And there you go. So now we have a full working, testable CRUD API controller. I would get rid of this stuff that we don't need in here. And again, this is very high level. We would want to do more with this as we built it out more. We'd want to do some checks on the data that's coming in, not just accept everything here. We want to make sure that data coming in is safe. There's no cross-site hacking trying to be done, things like that. So there's lots of stuff that goes into creating a CRUD. It is simple, but that you just have to kind of put in all the pieces, and then making sure that it's testable through something like Postman so that we can test each of the different method types that we're going to use. That's really, really important for getting a ticket like this completed. So now if we do API budgets, we should get 2 back, and these are the ones that we should be expecting here, which is very small and hard for you to read. Let's pretty print it. There we go. So this is what we do expect, because we only have 2 and 3. So we can see that everything is working. And again, we can see that here in Postman as well. If you've never messed with Postman, it's fairly intuitive. It's free. You just have to sign up, give them all of your life story and things like that. Like you do with everybody. But it's pretty easy. Post and put requests typically use raw, and you just put it in there. There you go. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense as far as what I'm expecting when I create a ticket that's um, for a CRUD API, not just creating the API route or even the API routes plural. So like even if you just did this, I would still want to make sure that it's actually connecting to a controller, that it's actually connecting to an API controller, and that API controller has valid responses. Again, there's lots more that we could go into if we were doing a Laravel training session on validating information and response types and things like that. This is a very basic application. And again, we're not building a professional application. We're building something for developers to use on their own. So I'm not too worried about getting into a lot of all the best practices necessarily. This is more just an opportunity to learn and grow in what you're working on. So one more thing with this is the location of the route. Obviously it's in the correct file. This is the routes API file. That's good, but typically most of our routes we don't want to be public routes. We want them to require the person to be logged in most situations. Now, in this application, we don't have user logins, so that's not a problem. But I would say the vast majority of applications that you develop are going to have user logins, and so you'll need to be able to you'll need to know how to differentiate whether your controller should be public or whether it should be behind some sort of middleware. So up here at the top, you see there's this route middleware option. And this is just for a specific route. But basically it's checking to see if the user is logged in before it returns any information here. Now, again, for our use case, we don't need that. But you can actually group by middleware. So let me show you what that looks like. Middleware grouping. So if you look at this, we've got, I'm going to see if I make this a little bit, make this a little bit bigger. So we've got route middleware, and inside that route middleware, you can put as many routes as you want. You can put route controllers. They don't have to be all gets and posts and things. You can put everything else inside that. And you can, again, just group it, with the group function. And then you just put whatever middleware needs to check. So typically you would put your authentication middleware in here to see if the user has the right to access that route. So that's really important, especially when you're developing real applications. You want to make sure that you wrap those routes inside whatever authentication or other middleware that you need to run on that for validation, verification, and security. So, but again, for here, this is fine. We can leave this here. We honestly probably just get rid of this because we don't need any user specific information. But that's just something to keep in mind for the future if you do develop in Laravel, or really, most types of routing, you want some sort of authentication wrapper. Laravel makes it pretty easy with the way that they have it set up, in my opinion. If you could see some of the stuff that I work on, we've got all kinds of stuff wrapped inside of middleware, because most of the routes that you want in your application are going to be behind that authentication. So that's just something to keep in mind there. So I am hesitant to push this up. I might push this up. There's some things I forgot that we didn't have don't have any models in here for some reason. So I'm going to make a ticket to create models for the Deep Pockets project if somebody wants to grab that. I would generally prefer that we have timestamps though. So let's go back and look at some of these. So like budgets should have timestamps. I don't know why they don't. My database must be old. And we have seeders, budget category seeders. So is my database seeded? Budget categories. There's no budget categories. Let's do this. Let's do sale, artisan, migrate, refresh. So what this should do is it should kill all the tables, which it did. So it dropped all the tables from my database, and it ran all the migrations new, and it created all the tables that we have here. So let's look at our table again, and let's refresh budget categories. So now these all have created at and created and updated at, right? So which is something that we definitely want most of the time. Yeah, created at, updated at. Yeah, generally you want timestamps on most of your tables, at least in my experience. So that was my fault for not updating my database. So I'm going to come back in here. Oh, we want that. That's not what I want. Go away. Budget API, budget. We'll add the timestamps back because we definitely want those. And budget API controller, save that. All right, just kind of cleaning some of this up a little bit here. Let's go back to our tests. So post API. Oh, this is a response. We're going to do here. What is going on here? I want this. Here we go. Let's make this a little bit bigger so I don't need the ID because we're creating. So let's call this January. Okay. And month 1. And let's test it. And now we have updated at, created at. So everything is working the way that I think it should now. So yeah, we're going to need some more models. So I will create a ticket to create basic models for all of those main tables. So if anybody wants to grab that, feel free to grab it once I've created it. So we'll get that updated. And then I will go ahead and just decline this PR, and I will push up my current CRUD example as the example moving forward for a basic. Now, as we get into actually using this, making the front end interact with these API calls, there's going to be things that we'll want to update in those to make sure that we're sending back the responses that we expect. If there's an error, we'd want to send back an error response, things like that. So we'll include that stuff as we go. I'll be creating more tickets around those items as well. So if you have any questions, obviously, certainly feel free to throw them out here, throw them on the comments on the video. If you're watching this later, throw them in the Discord server. But that's really kind of the idea of how this ticket, my vision for how this ticket should be done. All right, so hopefully that didn't scare you into not wanting to do API tickets. It's really not that difficult once you get your head wrapped around how it works. So hopefully you're not all running away. So anyway, any questions? I think everybody's been pretty silent. I must have been very captivating watching me struggle. I think I answered. Ming, did I answer all your questions? Hopefully I did. Let me know if not, or if you've got any other new questions. I didn't necessarily expect that to take an hour and a half, but there you go. Any questions about what we did too? So I will say this, Justin. Do you have any coding experience at all? Let's see how much of a delay I have. Hey, Clayton. Let's see. QBasic, I know for next and okay. All right, so here's the struggle. There are 1,000 things that you could learn from there's 1,000 things you could learn from a development standpoint, from a coding standpoint. I would start with, what do you think you want to do with coding? Um, to give you an idea better, maybe what direction to go down as far as learning code. If you if you're interested in paying for a resource, um, there is one that I'm pretty happy with, but it's not just Laravel, but it started off more Laravel, so it's going to definitely be in that realm. It's called Laracasts, laracasts.com. I think I've mentioned this one before, but it has all kinds of topics, it has all kinds of paths. So there's like a Laravel path, um, Vue. I don't know what other paths they have. Maybe they only have one path. Let's see. But there's lots of series, so you could do all kinds of stuff. Um, it's pretty good training. My son is using this to learn basic PHP right now, um, when he has time. But there's lots of different things. It's not just PHP. It's not just Laravel. There's lots of different things that you could learn, even tools and things like that. So it's a really great training resource. It is this one is cost, but if you don't want to pay for something, I mean, YouTube. There's lots of great resources on YouTube. So, you know, I I would like to help you find the right route, but it's hard to know what you want to do. If you even know what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, I would say maybe start learning Python. Python is a pretty easy language to get into, and it has lots of different applications. So I would maybe suggest Python for a beginner who doesn't know what they want to do with programming. So that's something open for suggestions from other people. Clayton, is this Clayton from work? I gotta see if this is the Clayton I think it. Oh no, okay. I thought you were somebody else. Sorry. All right, let's see. Backend engineer for the Home Depot website. Well, at least you have a very specific goal there, Justin. I don't know what their backend is. I don't know. Let's find out. Technology jobs at the Home Depot. Oh, I did new branch. Let's see. Senior software engineer. Software engineer. Let's see. Work location. This doesn't even tell me what the. They don't tell you what the stack is. How are you supposed to know if you? Oh, job description. Here we go. That's annoying. Okay. Physical requirements, working conditions, preferred qualifications, SQL queries, JavaScript framework. Java, preferably Java. Okay. Java is a good language. Might be a little bit of a learning curve there. But yeah, Java pays pretty well too, by the way. Um, so even for new people. So oh, you're in Raleigh. Okay. Good to see you, Clayton. um, let's see. Yeah, so again, yeah, Python or JavaScript's pretty good for beginners. Being Yeah, so it looks like Java is their preferred backend technology. My guess is they probably have more than just Java if they say it's preferred. Um, but that's probably what most of their stuff is written in on the back end is Java. Um, interesting. Experience in relational or NoSQL database. That would be kind of the two database types. Um, Microservice based architecture. Well, okay. No additional education. Yeah, I would. I mean, if this is really where you're looking at, I would look into learning JavaScript. I'm not JavaScript. Look into totally different. Look into learning Java. Um, it's a compiled language, so it's a little bit different than what we're doing with PHP. Um, but it's a great language. I've never. I shouldn't say never. I have not professionally used it. Um, I've messed around with it some. It's fine. It's not my cup of tea, but there's there are definitely a lot of jobs for Java. So and it pays well. So that's a great path to go down. Um, if that's what you're thinking. So yeah, so basically you want to work for like some sort of retail company that has a website. Nice. Okay. Yeah, and honestly, especially some of those sites that have been around for a while, they probably are using either Java or they're probably using .NET. Um, Most likely, I do know O'Reilly's. I think so. I had a buddy who went to work at O'Reilly's, and if I'm correct, they were using PHP at the time. Of course, this was 10 years ago, so they may not be using it anymore. I don't know. So it just depends on what they're using. Let's find out. Let's find out. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Whoa, this is not good. uh, you're using a web browser that is no longer supported. This is literally a brand new, like, I have the most recent web browser. Come on, O'Reilly's. Okay, let's look down here. Careers. Technology. Data engineer. Interesting. They've got data scientist, application development supervisor, data architect, senior software engineer. That's what we're looking for. Oh, that's a pretty good pay range for a software engineer. What's their requirements? Oh, this is why. 7+ years software development experience. Well, that'll tell you. Back in technologies like Java and Spring Boot. Yep, Java. Um, he might have had Java experience. I don't know. So, yep. Again, like some of these bigger companies, Java is pretty big in those. So, I would definitely look at learning that. Yeah, they are definitely hiring. That is the thing. And again, so this is why I'm going to jump up on my soapbox here, okay? I'm sorry, but this is again one of the problems that I have with boot camps. They're all teaching the same thing, and they're all teaching stuff that people are not really looking for. And yes, are there companies that are looking for JavaScript developers, even for back end? Sure. But when you start looking at jobs, the ones that are really out there that are hiring are other types of frameworks, other types of languages. And if you don't know that, you're just going to follow the path that somebody who's taking your money decided that you should follow. And so this is, again, this is why I asked you, what do you think you want to do, right? Because once you know what you want to do, you can then begin to know, how do I narrow down what it is that I need to learn? And if you want to work for some of these larger companies that are maybe retail based, they're going to typically use certain types of software, and especially if they're building it themselves. So do some research. And figure out what people are actually hiring for, and go learn that. People talk about languages being dead, right? People have been saying that PHP is dead for as long as I've been learning PHP. And it's still around. We still use it on brand new products every day. Java, it's been around for years, still going. Um, C is still being used, right? C++. Like there's most languages don't die because people need them to keep the stuff that they currently have running. Now they may not have as much popularity. For example, we have a Perl project. Perl is, you don't see a lot of Perl developers out there, but there's an application still running it. So you need somebody that knows how to write it. Eventually, as you get through your career, you'll reach a point where you can pick up and work in most languages, just because you'll have experienced enough things that you can do that. But but yeah, I think it's important to know where you want to go, even if that direction changes, because it very likely is going to change. I don't. Mel wasn't able to join us today, but she's changed her direction as far as her learning process because the direction she was going didn't provide the opportunity she was looking for, right? So she switched over to Python, if I remember correctly. Um, and so that's okay. It's okay to pivot. That's fine. In fact, one of the things I want to talk about eventually at some point, what are some good reasons to pivot? I don't want to do that today just because we don't have a ton of time. But knowing the direction that you want to go for now is important because that helps you determine what you need to learn. Um, it's not always best to just learn what's coming in the future. Sometimes you need to learn what already exists if you want to get a good paying job or if you want to get a job at all. Look at what already exists. Look what people are hiring for now, and then put everything you've got into learning that. And you'll be in a better spot than a lot of junior devs out there who are just learning React and Node. Um, can you get jobs with that? Sure. The job market's a lot tougher for that than it is somebody who spends a good bit of time learning Java or learning C Sharp or some of these other languages that are going to be more used by some of these bigger corporations. So just my 2 cents there. Hey Kelly, yeah, I'm gonna send yours back. Sorry. Um, so just to kind of rehash, the ticket probably was not as clear as it could have been or should have been, and so that's on me, and that helps me know how to write them a little bit better for you guys moving forward. Um, I would suggest going back and watching this. I'm actually going to push up what I was expecting based on some of the notes in the ticket, and then some things that I just didn't clarify, which is again on me. So nothing against you, Kelly. Um, just FYI. But I am gonna push up what I would like. High level feedback will be that we need also to have we need to have a controller that's an API specific controller, not the view controller that you connected to. And then we need to make sure that all those routes actually work for CRUD. So what we did is we built out an API controller. We added the methods and we added the API routes for the API controller. Also, the route type that we wanted was a controller type, not the resource type. So we updated that. But it worked out pretty well because we were able to kind of walk through what I would expect in a PR that's for CRUD, API CRUD. So it actually worked out very well. So even though it wasn't what I was expecting, it helped us talk through some of the things that I think will help everybody in the future. So I'm actually going to remove your PR just because I'll be pushing up basically what I would expect for that. But I would encourage you to go back and watch what we discussed earlier on it. It was honestly most of the live stream to this point. So and hopefully that'll help. If you have questions along the way, throw them in the comments or on the Discord server, and I'd be happy to answer those, or maybe put up a quick video or something like that if necessary to help you out. So excuse me. So yeah, we did already talk about it. Sorry, we went through your PR. I just haven't marked it as refused yet. So hopefully you again take it with a grain of salt and you're not discouraged. Don't be discouraged. It wasn't all on you, and it helped me clarify some things too. So um, perfect. Hopefully Kelly stays around. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Just sometimes it's if I don't know anything, but we take. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kelly. Like, there's days I feel like I don't know anything, and I've been doing this. I've been at least writing code for 20 years, and I look at some stuff. I see you guys discussing things in the Discord channel sometimes, and I'm just like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Just because again, there are so many things that you can learn. Uh, Justin, hopefully you catch this part. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and there's all kinds of stuff I don't know about programming, because I went down a specific path, and that's what I've learned. And there's lots of things even in that path and that I don't know, or don't remember, as was evident as we were working on the PR, the CRUD stuff today. So, um, hopefully it was at least maybe a little bit helpful to you, Justin, watching me struggle, knowing how much experience I do have. Sometimes you just forget a lot of stuff. So there's that. Yeah, Ian, they're calling C a low-level language now. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the more languages they come up with, the higher they get, right? Theoretically. uh, You're welcome, Justin. You are welcome anytime to watch me fail at writing code. In fact, I've actually considered adding another live stream, like an evening live stream, um, where I just code a project and talk about what I'm doing. Not necessarily for teaching purposes, but more just so that you guys could get like my perspective as I'm working on a project. Um, but I do know that like I don't have time to do the stuff ahead of time. So it literally would be absolutely raw. And there would probably be a lot of dead air at times as I try to figure out why something's not working. um, uh, so that would definitely be that's something I've thought about. I don't know. What's sad? What's sad is that probably would be my most popular live stream. I could call it something like "Watch Dave Fail." So I don't know. I've thought about it. It is a weird thing to me that people would want to watch somebody else do something. Like I watch my kids watch people play video games on YouTube, and I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't understand that. Maybe it's just my generation, my old age coming out. But I will seriously consider it if it's something that you guys think would be beneficial. Um, the other hard thing with that is finding the project to build. I don't want to build on top of the one that we're doing as a community, so it'd have to be a different project. Um, it'd be great if I could do it for a client and have them let me use it. Um, but I don't know. So there's some things that I have to figure out about that. 8 hours of coding. It would not be 8 hours. I can tell you that. We're talking maybe two. Because that's the other thing is, taking up time. One of the reasons why I stopped making videos and I've just got more live streams is it's just so much faster to just do a live stream than it is to create and edit videos and put them up there. So I know really, if I wanted to build the channel more, I should be making more videos. Um, I'm going to try to do some splicing of some of our live stream stuff to make some videos and push up there. But this is really what I want. I want to interact with you guys. So I don't know. Hopefully we can find some ways to do that. That doesn't take away from my full-time job because I still have to have a paycheck. But also give some opportunity for you guys to maybe see what it's like even for a senior level developer, maybe a poor senior level developer like me. And hopefully talk through some of the things that I'm thinking about as we go through it too, and answer questions. Again, to me, that's what live streams are for. It's for back and forth communications. Even though you guys have to type and I get to talk, it works for me. So, let's see. You guys are talking more. I didn't see this. Let's see. Get my old man glasses on here. Let's see. Meaning for CI/CD pipelines, what's the difference between using hosting platforms like Netlify and Render compared to Jenkins, Maven, etc.? Worked mainly with Netlify. Would you say that I have a CI/CD experience? I'll be honest with you. I've never used Netlify or Render or Maven. I've used Jenkins before. The thing with Jenkins, and this was almost 10 years ago that I used Jenkins. I would say generally they all pretty much do the same thing, would be my guess. The difference would be perhaps how integrated they are with your repository, how integrated they are with your actual production platform. So like some of your CI/CD processes are going to be built into your repository. Some of them are going to be built into another thing, such as like so Laravel has a service called Forge that lets you manage your servers. So like if you have your own AWS servers or something like that, you can install Forge on it and it will connect it basically, but it will manage the server for you. And you can set it up to listen to your repository. So it's not really part of your repository. It just listens to your repository for specific branches or however you want to set it up. And then when you push to that branch, such as staging or main or whatever it is, then it automatically deploys your most recent code to that server. So they all kind of do the same things, but more than likely they have different nuances to them. And I don't know honestly what the nuances are off the top of my head between them. I mean, let's just look. Netlify. Essential platform for delivering exceptional dynamic web experience without limitations. That's vague. Marketing. I tell you what. Sites are global. To deploy your sites to our global network. You guys want to see what I'm looking at? Platform. Instantly build and deploy your sites to our global network from Git, custom domains. So this is an actual hosting solution, it looks like. Not just a CI/CD process. But it would include a CI/CD process. What else? What's some of the other ones you threw in here? Maven. The thing with, at least from the last time that I used Jenkins, it was very manual to set up. This looks very manual to set up. Based on concept, maybe can manage projects build. Yeah, so this is more just the CI/CD process itself from what it looks like. Let's see. Get rid of all this stuff. What's another one? Netlify Render. No, not Render Forest. Cloud application platform. So this one looks like it's also probably, yeah, auto scaling. So this is your managed infrastructure as well. So it might connect to other places. It looks like they want you to use theirs though. Scale yours with unparalleled from your first use to your penalty. Yeah, I don't know. They all pretty much are going to do the same things for the most part. Some of them will do more things, some of them will do less, but they'll all pretty much. The process is pretty much the same, right? Depending on what you want to do, it's going to look when you've pushed something, maybe try to run a build, maybe run your unit tests, things like that. So, and then deploy potentially, depending on if that's set up in your CI/CD process. Yeah, so they're all very similar. Like you can do that in Bitbucket, right? Bitbucket has pipelines, and you can run a CI/CD process with Bitbucket whenever you do a push, and it can run builds and run tests and push everything to deploy it onto a server that you have connected. Like all that stuff is possible with a lot of those things. So um, it's more it's more around what you how you want to do it, pricing, um, what you're familiar with. Like there's lots of options. They're all very similar. That would be my take. Let's see. Kelly says what I did with the first per instruction to use a resource controller was correct. No, if you look at the here, let me pull this up. So if you look at the ticket, Kelly, um, this is what I said. So using the controller grouping. Um, so we need a resource controller, but we wanted to use the controller grouping. So if I look at um, what we did here is you use the resource route group, but we actually want to group it by the controller. So because here's the reason why we may add other routes that access different methods inside that controller moving forward. So so we want to be able to do that based on the controller, group them based on the controller rather than just the resource concept. If we knew that we were only going to use those resources, that's fine. Also, the other issue is that the resource, well, we could tell it not to have the ones that we don't want, but this way we also specify exactly which routes that we want. So this is more what I was going for on that. And then the other big thing was the controller that we want. The one you were pointing to was just the view, so I wanted you to actually create an API specific one. So if you look at the one that we created, it's just API specific. So we don't return any views from this, only JSON objects basically. Or, well, like this just returns um, Boolean value, but like we would change this one to return an actual JSON with a success or error message, things like that. But that wouldn't necessarily be required to test. And then kind of the last piece of that is we just want to make sure that we can actually test those endpoints through something like Postman. And I walked through kind of how we did that here earlier as well too. So those are the big takeaways. And again, that helps me write those tickets better in the future. So again, this is not a hey, you just did everything wrong. It was more of a learning experience for everybody, and then also for me from a ticket creation standpoint to make sure that I'm calling out things a little bit more clearly as far as expectations are concerned. And now I'll have one to point to as well, so that'll be helpful. I can tell people in the code what they can look at. So it's all good. It's all good. But I am removing your PR. Let's see. Yeah, you would think there would be a good ROI on the YouTube channel for the something live like that, but live doesn't get you a lot of ROI there, especially because I don't allow advertisements during the live stream. I don't understand that. That drives me crazy. I think if you watch it later, it probably does put them in. Um, but when you're watching live, that's annoying to do. To do have ads pop up when you're watching something live. So yeah, there's no ROI really, at least on a small channel like mine for the live streams. But the ROI is in helping you guys learn and grow. So that's the important thing. Um, let's see. With current job market, considering building a freelance web dev agency, do you think it is fine to ask my social circle from the church to look for some freelancers? Are you wanting to hire freelancers or just do the work yourself? Generally, I would, unless there's stuff that you want to do that you don't have the skill set for, I would recommend just starting your own agency and doing your own work. Um, But if you're looking for developers, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's perfectly fine. You should be able to. I think, in my opinion, every social group should be open for looking for people to help. I mean, yeah, looking for more designers. Uh, Designers or developers? Because there's a difference there too. No, I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, especially if you're looking to build a company. Um, the biggest issue might be, especially starting right away, you don't have the funds to hire people directly. It would all be freelance off on side projects, most likely would be my guess. So, but yeah, I mean, I would use any of my networks to find people if I needed help with something. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see. And again, I think that's a valid, I think that's a valid approach. And again, I've said this before, but I would also say if you're going to go that route, make sure you add freelance projects to your resume, you know, and talk, be able to talk about them well, because that should be able to show years of experience doing freelance work, even though it may not be working for an actual company. Um, so definitely take advantage of that. Let's see. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I don't think so. If I miss something, tell me real fast. um, okay. So I think that's everything. We're about up to 2 hours here. So if you have questions, don't forget you can always throw them in the Dev Mentor Dave Discord server. Multiple channels there, depending on what types of things you're asking questions about, and we can get help from one another. And if you have suggestions, obviously throw those out there as well. I'm going to try to do some different topics here on the Saturdays, since most of the time we won't spend nearly that kind of time on the PR reviews. I thought it was important for this one, just because the lack of clarity in the ticket, and then just having some expectations moving forward. So I think that worked out fine today. But if you have things you'd like for me to talk about, for me to monologue for for way too long on, let me know. And in the Discord channel, leave it on a chat on here. Leave it in the comments section on the video. Those are the main ways to get a hold of me, and I will definitely see what I can do to throw those in there. Yeah, Kelly, go ahead, grab another ticket. Uh, feel free to do anything that's in there. Try out front end, back end, whatever you want to try. That's what this is for. This is an opportunity for you guys to try new things, to learn what it's like to work with a team, to learn what it's like to have a jerk like me send your stuff back as a PR review, and it's all part of the process. So hopefully it's a kind version of the process. Hopefully. So anyway, yeah, feel free to grab anything in there. I would say, let me share this again real fast. You should be able to add yourself as an assignee. So if you do grab a ticket in here, like let's say this, right? So you grab a ticket, you should be able to like add yourself as an assignee to that ticket. That just lets me know and others know that you are working on it. And then obviously put it in progress here, which you did, so that's good. I would say once you push a pull request up, you can move it to in review, and we'll move this one out because that one's done. So put it to in review, and that just, again, it's just another way for us to track where tickets are in the process there. If I now yours, I'll actually just be removing, but if I do send it back, I'll try to remember to put it in a rework rework column so you can see that, and you should get notifications anyways when I leave comments on it as well. So this just kind of helps us manage the project a little bit more, and know who's doing what at any given time. So anybody, yes, feel free to grab another ticket and keep us moving. I do try to put in, especially front end tickets, links to the canvas or links to the Figma design, so you can see what we're looking at. Again, there are page names up here above the pages, and those should be called out. So this is the list page. This is the details page. If there are changes in like actions, let's say you click a button and it opens a drawer, we'll have multiple versions of that here to the right, typically, so you can see those adjustments and changes as you interact with the page. But new pages will be kind of their own rows, if that makes, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So good to see you guys. Thanks for hopping in here. This was fun. This was nerve-wracking having you guys watch me fail over and over and over again. But hopefully it was enjoyable for you, and hopefully you learned something, and it'll help you on your journey as a junior developer, as a mid-level, senior level developer, lead developer, whatever it is. Maybe you learned something about writing better tickets than I did. You know, there's always something to learn for everybody. So thanks for jumping on, guys. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate you being willing to listen to me ramble and being willing to let me kind of speak into your journey. I do not take that lightly. And so thank you. And I look forward to see you guys hopefully Tuesday, assuming something else doesn't get in the way. But the plan is to jump on the live stream on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central United States time. So I will see you all then. Have a great weekend. And yeah, I'll find the button here. See you guys.